Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. Oh, hang on. That's like way too hot. Now it's too low. Oh my goodness. Uh, thought I fixed this before the stream started, but that'll do. Let's start that over. Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. I'm Rosebud Reads, and welcome to my book garden. Actually, welcome to my basement. Hi, Chichi Kiki, and hello, Peacock Pages. Welcome to the stream. How are you two doing? Doing good? Oh, and Razor. Hello. Welcome. And also, how are you? You're doing good, Chichi Kiki? I'm super glad to hear it. Also, super excited that we're going to start our new book. I even got special fish stickers for it. Look, they're fish. I'm doing well. As I said, excited about the book. I decided to continue our tradition where we open a blind box. I thought this kind of looked like an octopus. So this is the series we're going to do for this book series. Maybe we'll continue it if it's cute. Like, they look pretty cute. Like, they're all spirits, and in the spirit of this, I thought, why not? But yeah, I had a good weekend. Nothing too crazy. Just normal stuff. Hey! Welcome, Night Owl Workshop. And yes, I do know what you're doing. I hope you have a great time, and I will try to see you / say hi at Kickter's stream next time. Or tonight. We'll see when we end. But yes. Oh, and hello, Truffle85. Welcome. That's right. Logistics. I do not own the disabled Tyrant, his beloved pet fish. I wish I was that good of a writer. It belongs to Xue Shan Fei Hu, as well as Kenji Bao Jun de Shan Xing Yu Chong, who I think is the illustrator. I might have mixed that up. As you can tell, I'm going to do my best with the pronunciation. This one's pretty easy on the pronunciation of names. Some of the other books we've read have put me through the ringer a little bit. But suffice to say, Seven Seas and the authors and illustrators and translators that worked on this own it. I do not. The only thing I own is the physical copy in front of me and my time. That's it. I'm really looking forward to reading this. If you couldn't tell, this is a pretty chill stream. I will be making side comments. I will be chatting with the chat. And if that's not really your thing, that's okay. This might not be, but maybe stay around, see if you like it. The story is fantastic. This is actually one of my absolute favorite series. So maybe give it a try. You might enjoy it. I think we have a great time. But anyway, let's go ahead and get to this. If anyone has anything they'd like to share, any comments while I'm reading, feel free to just share them in the chat. Hey, Mars Rover. It's good to see you. Liu is best boy. And, okay, don't quote me on this, but there's an actual pretty serious part of me that might actually do one of the specific cosplays from this. It's a cosplay that doesn't happen till later, but if I actually put stuff into the works for it, I might share it. It's a little ridiculous, but I think it would be hilarious to do it. Yeah. Yes. Oh, it's going to be a work in progress. If I do end up doing it, it's going to require construction. But yeah, that'll be later. Do it. I probably will, in all honesty. I've actually started looking at tutorials on how I would even start it. But before that, let's do our little figure surprise. So we have different spirits. We've got Spring Brings Springtime, Sachet Lotus, Snow and Winter Sweet, Rooftop Guardian, Prospituous Jades, Black and White Game, Auspicious Animal Seal, which I guess is this one. River Scroll, that one's kind of cute. Sandalwood Incense. Oh, I want that one. The Sandalwood Incense Burner. Because Motel Zushi, the incense burner. And it's sandalwood? Oh, we got to get that one. I hope between the 4 books we get that one. Exhale Like an Orchid. Ink Bamboo Painting. And Porcelain Blossoms plus The Secret. Which it's 1 in 141 for The Secret. So I'm not betting on The Secret. It looks like an interesting shadow, but like I will not be heartbroken if we don't get it. I think I really do like this front one. It looks adorable and slightly ferocious and kind of like a little feisty, and I like that. All right, let's see. I'm totally not opening this box nicely. All right. I will show you the card. Let's see what I got. I think I'm showing it on screen. And then let's open it. Let's do it. Oh, it's so cute. He's got like fluffy eyebrows. Look at him. Oh, here. I'll cover my face. Maybe make it easier to see. I don't know if that helped. Oh, so the series is Demo World. It's a mix with Pop Art. And the series it's part of is Demo Stories in the Cup series. Like, so this one is the Auspicious Animal Seal. Oh, it's a seal. That's cool. I mean, I'm not going to ink it up, but that's so cute. All right. You know where it goes. It goes with the others for the series. I'm going to pop him right there. I'll put this back up there. But yeah. So now he'll be in the screen. Right? That's really cute. Okay. Oops. And as you can see in my background, I actually had the realization of I have all of these beautiful boys. I might as well put them on my shelves and share, or floor over there. You can see that I'm slightly biased with that. We have all of the main favorites. I recently got my Mushroom Boys in the mail, which I was very excited about. Right. And Night Owl Workshop is definitely helping me with the plush department. Right. I love all my boys. Yeah, I was super excited to get my Mushroom Boys. I literally ordered them like 9 months ago and had kind of one of those feelings when I got an email that was like, yeah, they're not shipping out until like mid-June, late July. And I was like, it's snowing out. That's a while. And they were like, do you want to wait? Like the pre-order got sent back. I was like, I mean, I already paid you. Kind of committed. I hope you're legit. And they were. They were legit. They are C-pop. I found them on the shop app. They have some cool stuff. Shipping kind of hurts, but they're legit if people are looking. Not sponsored. It is a Don May plush army. I have all of the main boys. You've got the Modao Zushi boys, the Untamed Boys, my Modao shelf on top. I clearly have a bias. We've got Heaven Official. They get 2 shelves. Of course, Scumvillain. And then we have a little bit of Husky White Cat Shizun in the corner. And of course, we have Wei Wuxian on the floor. His husband is in shipping. He is huge, though. Let me show you this. We will start the book in a little bit. I just... Look at how big he is. He's huge. like this is in comparison to my head. So yeah, I was not expecting that. So when I got this gigantic box with him in it, especially since I came home sick from a convention and it was just there, I was like, what the hell did I order? And we all have that feeling sometimes, like, oh my God, what did I order? And then it opened and it made my day a little better because I actually had legit just gotten to the train station that was an hour away, was about to get in a cab to go to the convention center, dressed as Hua Chong, and I almost threw up in their bathroom. And I was just like, nope. Literally caught the next train home and just was like, all right, guess convention season's done. So yeah, he was my bonus after a not so great day. But yeah, those are my boys. Did I miss any? I've got my dragon Wei Wuxian too on the lower shelf. There's some of the newer ones. But yeah. When Lan Wangji Kitty consolation plush, he was definitely my consolation plush. I cuddled with him while feeling a little miserable that day for sure. But yeah. Now that we have had some fun Danmei plush sharing, because I just had that thought. I was like, they're all kind of squished up in my room. I was like, I have this cool space down here now that I cleaned it out, and I was like, I could make this work. So I did. But anyway, the reason we're here, it is time. We shall get this, and I shall open my caffeine. I have tried to start cutting back on caffeine, and I found this. Again, not sponsored, but it's only 65 milligrams of caffeine, which is like 1 cup of coffee, so I feel like that's better. Oh yeah, I also have water. Got water too, no worries. Sustenance. But yeah, I've been trying to cut back, but it's just like flavored water with a little extra. Okay, so here's our inside page, which is a little bit of an expanded look. And then we also have this, which is super cool. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can get a better look. And it says, Mu Tianxi, 5th son of the Emperor of Great Chu, born with a speech impediment. Main quest, Tyrant's precious pet fish. Interact with the Tyrant. Okay, so I will definitely show all the pictures. Hope you have a good read. We'll see you next week because I have a con this weekend. That is fantastic. I hope you have a great time, Chi-Chi Kiki. And have a wonderful time at your convention. Chapter 1. The Fish in the Soup. Li Yu floated on the surface of the freezing cold water, utterly motionless. Good. He could vaguely hear the muffled noises of people moving about from somewhere above his head, but it was difficult to make out anything clearly. It was a little noisy, though. So he flipped over and opened his eyes. his entire body felt wet. After the initial shock, his mind gradually began to clear. With dawning terror, he realized that he was surrounded by water. That was impossible. Hadn't he fallen asleep after staying up late reading web novels? When did he fall into water? More importantly, he couldn't even swim. Liu flailed his limbs wildly. As he struggled, he felt something on his back move. Oh, hi, Cookielicious! We literally just started. I think I've read 2 paragraphs, so you are just in time. Liu flailed his limbs wildly. As he struggled, he felt something on his back move. Never do that, haven't we learned? In the past, whenever he fell into water, the only fate that awaited him was sinking to the bottom. But to his surprise, this time he found he didn't plunge straight down. Instead, he was staying afloat, as if an invisible hand were holding him up. And the surreal, impossible to ignore rhythm behind him, what was that? Liu peeked back at himself and startled. He'd always been proud of his long, slender legs, but now they were gone. In their place, a silvery, gleaming fishtail appeared, switching vigorously through the water, from side to side, up and down. Yeah, LOL, yeah. Can't read web novels or you'll get a system that will ruin your life with a hot man. Oh, darn. What's the best web novel on the market right now? Well, that must be why he hadn't sunk. It's the falling asleep that does it. Sometimes it feels like it. Trifle 85, sometimes it feels like it. Liu was speechless. What was going on? How did his legs turn into a fishtail? Was he dreaming? Dreaming about turning into a mermaid? Yeah, they can ruin your life easily. Some of them, yes. Insomnia for the win. As girly as it sounded, a mermaid was the only possibility Liu could think of where a human had a fishtail. No, he wasn't talking about the ugly yet cute Du Gong from the animal world. It was the ethereal, half-human, half-fish mermaid with long, flowing hair, a beautiful complexion, and a heavenly voice. Everyone knew mermaids didn't exist in real life, so the only logical conclusion was that this was all a dream. Since it was a dream, he saw no problem with admiring his own beauty as a mermaid. He's taken this pretty well, in all honesty. Liu glanced around, searching for a mirror or anything with a reflection that could show his appearance. As he moved, he kept swishing his tail back and forth vigorously. It's actually kind of nice to have a tail to wave around as he pleased. Unfortunately, this dream wasn't really going exactly as planned. There was no mirror in the water. Liu flipped over and, from the force of habit, reached for his forehead to flick his bangs. Except this led to another problem. Liu quickly realized that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't reach his own forehead. What was wrong with his hand? Had his arm become shorter somehow? Liu looked down in confusion. That was when he realized his hands, with their distinct joints, had been replaced with a pair of constantly paddling fish fins that were, well, the exact shape and texture of a fish's fins. If his legs had been turned into a tail and his hands had turned into fins, then Liu hurried to look at himself. Wait. When did his stomach turn flat and slim, like you'd normally only see on a fish? Not only did he have a long, slender belly, but he was also covered in silvery black fish scales. Holy shit! Liu took a deep breath, and a few bubbles actually came floating out. There, reflected on the bubble's surface, he could see it clearly. His entire body had turned into a fish. Fish head, fish belly, fish scales. He was no mermaid. He was a proper carp. So a carp is pronounced Liu, the same as Liu's name, which is kind of funny, all things considered. Fear slammed into Liu so hard he froze, momentarily forgetting to swish his tail. Immediately, he began to sink. He was going to drown! He was going to drown! Just as he was about to crash into a black rock on the bottom, Liu used both his tail and fins to battle frantically, managing to stop himself before he collided with the rock. Unfortunately, his tail wasn't so lucky. Liu winced. That really hurt. The fishtail wasn't just some decoration. He only hit it once, but Liu was in so much pain he spat out a long trail of variously sized bubbles. What was up with that? That hurt more than cutting into his leg with a knife. How could the pain be so real in a dream? Liu's eyes widened slightly. No way! Was this not actually a dream? He had really turned into a fish, and not just any fish, but the most basic kind of carp? I love that he's more indignant that he's a basic carp than, like, being a fish right now. He's like, okay, not only am I a fish, but I'm a basic bitch fish? Like, at least give me, like, a cool fish. He moved on from that pretty quickly. Where exactly was he? How did he transform? There was no way he was turned into a carp just because his name was Liu, right? Most importantly, was there a way for him to change back? Basic fish, yes. He wanted to be a pretty fish. Bet he did. At least he gets an upgrade soon. Okay. There was no way he was turned into a carp just because his name was Liu, right? And most importantly, was there a way for him to change back? Has to be a fish he at least wants to slay. An entire herd of WTF stampeded through Liu's mind. Before he had the chance to fully grasp the situation at hand, he heard someone speak. A high, reedy voice rang out. Xiaolin, we're still missing a live fish for the noble consort's 1,000 carp soup. In ancient China, the emperor consorts were ranked. Noble consort was the second highest rank after empress. Another voice immediately responded, Gao Gong Gong, this fish flipped over just now. The birthday banquet is an important matter, and this servant doesn't dare present it to the noble consort, so I was just about to throw it away. Should I go get another? Liu was alarmed. He had been secretly celebrating the discovery that there were other people around him, but what was all this noble consort and gong gong stuff? Did he transmigrate into a historical palace fish? What the hell was the 1,000 carp soup? Before he could figure it out, a light shone right into the water above Liu's head, splitting the dark in two. From that beam of light, a terrifyingly sized hand reached in. Liu almost passed out on the spot. That hand was way too big. But after some careful consideration, he realized. Of course it was. He was an ordinary little fish now. Obviously, a human hand would be colossal to a fish. Every instinct inside Liu screamed that he was in danger. He couldn't help swimming all over the place. Without a moment's hesitation, the hand reached into the water, fingers outstretched, and clasped around Liu, who was bumbling around like a headless fly. I feel like this part is actually rather horrifying. Wakes up as a fish about to turn into soup. It really is. Like, it's written very comically, but, like, literally, it'd be like waking up on a chopping block, and you're just like, what is happening? Like, part of the irony is, like, just in general, for a person named Liu, he didn't know how to swim. Then to be turned into the fish, there's irony number 2. But, like, the fact that he got over the thing so quickly. And then now he's just like, oh my goodness, like, ouch, my tail hurts. This might not be a dream. And then he's like, I'm in danger. Every instinct inside Liu screamed that he was in danger. He couldn't help swimming all over the place. Without a moment's hesitation, the hand reached into the water, fingers outstretched, and clasped around Liu, who was bumbling around like a headless fly. Now that he was a fish, Liu had no neck, so the hand covered most of his body. Liu yelped and struggled fiercely, his tail flapping violently. It was even more painful than hitting his tail just now. How could you grab a fish's chest and stomach? It hurts! Like, especially this part. Like, that'd be like getting constricted. Ouch. But the person couldn't hear the fish's cries and just chuckled. This fish is certainly lively. What do you mean it flipped over? Xiaolingji, you didn't say that just so you could take the fish for yourself, did you? With all the ruckus around him, Liu's world was spinning, but he managed to catch a glimpse of the place he had been in before. A fish basket. Ensnared in the person's hand, he was lifted to meet their gaze. Liu's fish eyes took in the two people dressed like palace servants from ancient times. The one holding him was Gao Gonggong. He wasn't very tall, and he looked like a round white dough ball. Next to him, Xiaolingji looked a little like a flax stem. So they were very skinny and had kind of like pokey hair. Maybe? Xiaolingji hurried to kiss up to Gao Gonggong. He smiled. Oh, it's a dude. Okay. He smiled and said, Gao Gonggong, this servant would never dare take advantage, with you overseeing everything. My eyes must have been playing tricks on me before. It's simply a misunderstanding. Since this fish is still alive, the servant will go and prepare the fish soup immediately. The palace equivalent of Laurel and Hardy. Yeah. Liu, who was being held by Gao Gonggong, immediately became agitated. What? What? Fish soup? Thousand carp soup might have been a complete mystery to him just a moment ago, but the concept of fish soup was definitely something he understood deep within his bones. Literally. He was a fish right now, and they were about to turn him into soup. Squeezing me is one thing, but turning me into soup is where I draw the line. I do love this character so much. Originally, Gao Gonggong had only visited the imperial kitchen to scold Xiaolingji a little. Now that that was done, he was planning on leaving the fish for Xiaolingji to deal with. Liu had lain quiet and still in Gao Gonggong's grip for some time, but now that soup was on the menu, he mustered all his strength to struggle free. The fish was slippery. In the split second that Gao Gonggong loosened his grip, Liu managed to get free and fling himself into the air. I agree with you, Mo Mars Rover. I love how comedic the tone of this book is. It's such a lighthearted tone compared to the vast majority of Danmei that I have read so far. Liu, still thrashing around as he flew through the air, leaving a long trail of water behind him, was terrified. What was he going to do? He was going to die. He was going to die. Was he still going to be made into soup if he died? Sob, sob, sob. He still hadn't figured out how exactly he had transmigrated into a fish in the first place. He didn't want to die. What if it stuck this time? Liu soared towards Xiaolingji, completely out of control. Xiaolingji reached out to grab him, but the fish was too slippery. He couldn't get a firm hold of him. Liu was seconds away from splatting onto the ground when a long meow came from outside and a streak of snowy white fur bounded in. Just before Liu's tail hit the ground, the white figure caught him firmly in its mouth. Liu didn't even have time to celebrate his close call before his scales were standing straight up all over his body. I love the sob, sob, sobs. He is very dramatic. Yes. I can't read the word sob in any book without thinking of Liu. LOL. Right? I agree, Peacock Pages. Holy crap. The shape, the sound. Was this a fucking large white cat? He'd managed to escape from the hand of a human only to land directly in the mouth of a cat? How was he supposed to survive a cat's mouth? Liu had never been afraid of cats before, but now that he was a fish, he was scared to death. Cats' tongues were covered in spikes. If it licked him, would it take a chunk of him with it? He was completely paralyzed by fear. The cat was going to eat him. He'd be just a pile of fish bones. Being turned into soup wasn't sounding so bad anymore. Kitty. The large white cat that had appeared out of nowhere ignored Gao Gong Gong and Xiaoling Shi and sprinted out with a fish in its mouth. It all happened way too fast. The existential horror of little Meow Meow. Yeah. It took Xiaoling Shi a moment to react. Gao Gong Gong, the cat has taken the fish! This sturdy, fat white cat looked a little familiar. With a start, Gao Gong Gong realized who it was and kicked Xiaolang Shi. What are you dawdling for? Can't you see that's the noble consort's cat? Xiaoling Shi, hurry and follow it. Don't let the precious master cat choke on a fish bone, otherwise the noble consort will never forgive us. After all, the cat of our master is also half a master. Yes, sir! There was a tinge of bitterness in Xiaoling Shi's voice. Couldn't afford to offend even a cat master these days. In this economy, Li Yu was clamped between the white cat's jaws, and Xiaoling Shi chased after them. Originally, he had hoped Gao Gong Gong and Xiaoling Shi would pull him out of the cat's mouth, since he was, after all, an ingredient for the fish soup. That made him more or less useful. But hearing what they were saying now, it turned out they didn't care about the fish at all, and had no plans to save him. They were more concerned the cat might choke on his bones. How fickle! These guys sure knew how to wait and see which way the wind blew. As infuriated as Liu was, there was nothing he could do about his situation. All he could do was use every ounce of energy he had left to try and slip out of the cat's mouth. But the white cat was not the ambitious yet incompetent Gao Gong Gong, nor did it have the habit of eating and running at the same time. It held Liu delicately in its sharp teeth. Liu wiggled around, but its jaws didn't even loosen. On the contrary, they tightened around him. Liu didn't dare move anymore. He lay quietly in the little cat's mouth, the tip of his tail quivering uncontrollably. This was way too scary. Liu couldn't help screaming, "Help! Someone save me!" It didn't matter who. Whoever it was, he'd do anything they wanted in his next life as long as they freed him from this cat's mouth. But no human heard the fish, and neither did the cat. The large white cat, trotted on, unencumbered. Countless people saw it pass, but not a single one of them stopped it. It was exactly like Gao Gong Gong had said. The cat of our master is also half a master. Careful what you wish for, Liu. Right? While Liu's screams were going unheard, the white cat dug its claws into the floor tiles, skidding to an abrupt stop. Liu flinched as he felt the cat's teeth tighten around him. The white cat's shining eyes glared at whatever was in front of it, a warning growl rumbling from its throat as if it were facing a formidable enemy. Detecting the shift in the white cat's attitude, Liu quickly looked to see why. A young man with a tall, upright figure draped in resplendent, luxurious robes appeared in his field of vision. Like a god descending upon the earth, he blocked the great white cat's path. So we actually have a picture, and it's pretty early on. So here he is in the cat's mouth. There's a boy. Right, 1 second. The prince, the second male lead, has arrived. Yup. Chapter 2. The fish in the cat's mouth. Liu was delighted. Right? I do love the style of the art in this. it kind of fits with the style of this book, where it's a lot more soft lines and gentle images. It's not as sharp as like a lot of the other books where it's more stately. This one's almost a little, it is so pretty, I agree. It's almost a little more not childish, but or cartoony, but it just feels more fun. It's a little more fun. They have more fun with the pictures. Some of them, it's not as serious. It's equally pretty and comedic. Yes. Liu was delighted. So there was someone who didn't kiss up to Master Cat. It is so cute. I love it. If a cat's intellect could be compared to that of a 2-year-old, then this large white cat was a spoiled child. I wish there could be a dong. I would so buy and read a donghua of this book. I would absolutely do so. No one had ever denied it anything. It had always gotten everything and anything it wanted. How dare this person presume to stand in the cat's way when it had a fish in its mouth? The white cat spun on the spot a couple of times, deciding it would demonstrate just who the real master was here. With the fish held firmly in its jaws, pounced on the young man's shins. Thwack! The white cat pounced so hard that even trapped inside its mouth, Liu could feel its muscles tense up. But its target didn't even flinch. Yowling, the cat bounced off the young man's firm legs. Liu felt its jaws loosen around him with a rush of elation and rolled out of its mouth and onto the floor. Luckily, Master Cat wasn't very far from the ground, so the impact wasn't too harsh. The white cat froze, letting out a meow. It readied itself to recapture its prey. Liu had only just managed to escape the cat's mouth. How could he let it snatch him up again? Desperate, he flapped his tail wildly and leaped into the air, only to leap so far that his tail slapped the cat right in the mouth with a resounding smack. Liu was speechless. So was the white cat. No way! All he wanted was to escape! How did he manage to accidentally slap the cat instead? If fish could sweat, Liu would have been sweating bullets. As a fish that dared to slap a cat in the face, wasn't he asking to be eaten immediately? With its fur standing on end from the sudden slap, the white cat raised one heavy paw and pressed it down on Liu's body. To the little fish, the cat's sharp claws might as well have been made of steel. Liu continued to struggle. Ow! Don't press on my head! It hurts! It hurts! It hurts! Oh, we know that line well, don't we? As a fish that dared make such a scene in front of a cat, it was a wonder he hadn't been swallowed already. Was his illustrious life really about to come to an end in a cat's mouth? Under the cat's paw, Liu's body hurt all over. Right? The pain. He went limp from the pain, but unwilling to accept his fate, the tip of his tail still trembled. It was then that he saw a pair of pitch-black, cloud-patterned boots slowly approaching. When the white cat caught him the second time, the youth in the luxurious robes noticed the commotion too. Liu wasn't sure if he was imagining things now that his death was imminent, but he thought that the young man had glanced over in his direction just briefly. But how was that possible? Neither Gao Gong Gong nor Xiaoling Shi deigned to spare him an extra glance. Just the briefest look at the opulent robes was enough for Liu to see that this youth was someone of status. Was it really possible someone like that would notice a little fish like him? Liu's reserves of energy were almost depleted, and he could hardly lift his tail anymore. He laid there quietly, channeling the last of his strength into just taking breath after difficult breath. Fish couldn't stay out of the water for too long. nor could they bear being bitten or clawed at by a cat. Poor Liu had managed to check both boxes. With a swish of his robes, the youth crouched down. Liu watched his handsome face grow larger and larger as it drew closer and closer. This face was handsome in the extreme, but as cold and beautiful as icy frost. We do love that in our Danmei boys, don't we? The hair at his temples were so neatly arranged that it could have been cut by a knife, and he had eyes like cold stars, skin as pale as jade, red lips, and snowy white teeth. If Song Yu or Panan, who were two of the foremost handsome men of ancient China, were still alive, he could probably have given them a run for their money. Liu's vocabulary was quite limited when it came to compliments, so his brain very quickly ran out of words. It was like, he's pretty. I like him. Back when he was still human, he had been very confident in his own appearance and thought he was rather good looking. Did the heavens know he was close to death and deliberately arranged for him to meet a more beautiful, ethereal man just so he could die with jealousy in his heart? Whether you were a fish or a person, being close to death really brought out your honesty. Okay, fine. It was true. He was a little jealous. Experiencing the phenomena known as terminal lucidity, Liu's brain started to spiral into nonsense. Next to his ear, the large white cat meowed extremely unhappily. And all of a sudden, the pressure on his body disappeared, and the sharp claws that had held him down so tightly were gone. Liu couldn't believe his luck. He tried moving his fish body. The pain was still intense, but he really could move. What happened? Why would the white cat let him go for no reason? Liu looked up slightly and saw the cat rising up into the air. The youth in the opulent robes had picked it up roughly by the scruff of its neck. Although this was a rather burly cat, it was obviously an expensive breed, with its pure snow white fur and eyes like clear blue sapphires. Most people would at least pity this soft white furball and treat it tenderly, even if they didn't care for the noble consort. But this youth's expression was indifferent, with absolutely no regard for the cat at all. Liu didn't understand what was happening. But what was most important here was that there was a sliver of hope for his life as a fish. Thank the heavens, and thank this beautiful man. Having been dragged away from both the fish and the floor by force, the cat let out a furious, shrill yowl, its claws slashing wildly in the air. Perhaps this would have been enough to intimidate anyone else. But the tall young man was unimpressed. Xiaoling Shi, who had belatedly rushed to the scene, immediately fell to his knees upon witnessing all this. Liu couldn't help feeling shocked through his haze of pain. What was Xiaoling Shi doing? There was no way he was kneeling because he wanted to save an ingredient, right? Reality soon proved him wrong. Xiaoling Shi was kneeling before the finely dressed youth. Kowtowing, he stumbled over his words. Prince Jing, this is the noble consort's precious master cat. Please have mercy. Liu was stunned. This youth was a prince? Prince Jing? Hearing noble consort or gong gong had been one thing, but why did Prince Jing sound so familiar? But the thought only crossed his mind for a second. Liu had more important things to worry about. His fish life was still in danger. The extravagantly dressed youth, Prince Jing, scoffed. His dark eyes swept across Xiaoling Shi, but he made no move to release the cat. The white cat had been yowling vigorously, but it seemed to have exhausted itself, its cries getting quieter and quieter. Prince Jing, exuding a commanding air, ignored it. Xiaoling Shi remained kneeling on the ground, more and more sweat collecting on his forehead. Liu was still lying on the ground. He was extremely grateful that this Prince Jing had saved him from the large white feline bully. But could someone pay attention to him and put him back in the water? He was about to turn into a dead fish. What to do? Liu wearily curled his tail, but no one could hear his thoughts. Your Highness, wait for this old servant, I'm coming. Another unfamiliar figure came running from the distance, hollering and yelling. It was an older eunuch. He came to a stop in between Prince Jing and Xiaoling Shi, then took a huge gulp of air. This was Prince Jing's personal servant, Wang Shi. Wang Shi, Gong Gong, you're here. Xiaoling Shi's eyes brightened, thinking his savior had arrived. He hurried to bow as he said, Please help me ask Prince Jing for forgiveness. Forgiveness? Wang Shi had finally caught his breath. He glanced carefully at Prince Jing's expression before shooting a fierce glare at Xiaoling Shi. This cat was the one that jumped at His Highness. Are you saying His Highness can't punish it? Xiaoling Shi felt the world spin. He whimpered, That's the noble consort's prized master cat. Wang Shi had already recognized the white cat, but as soon as Xiaoling Shi brought it up, his rage shot through the roof. It's just a cat! How dare it try to act like a master in front of His Highness, he spat. I mean, you've got a point. Wang Gong Gong. Xiaoling Shi had a sinking feeling he had misspoken and hurriedly slapped a hand over his mouth. While the noble consort's cat was essentially half a master compared to servants like him, it was nothing in front of descendants of the dragon. Indignant with fury, Wang Shi spat on Xiaoling Shi and cursed him out. Xiaoling Shi trembled all over, head lowered, was even more afraid to speak than before. After he was done with his tirade, Wang Shi turned back to look at Prince Jing. The prince's icy eyes moved slightly, and Wang Shi immediately understood. Holding his hands up daintily, he turned around and loudly yelled, This cat has offended His Highness, and His Highness is disciplining it a little. Why are you getting so worked up? Since the cat in Prince Jing's hand had failed in its attempts to intimidate him, its temper had more or less subsided. It seemed to realize that it hit a brick wall and settled on sticking out its pink tongue and mewing pitifully. Most people's hearts would have softened at this point, but Prince Jing was not most people. He waited until the white cat stopped mewing and demurely lowered its head and then casually tossed it at Xiaoling Shi. Cats didn't fear heights. It soared from Prince Jing's hands and eagerly threw itself straight into Xiaoling Shi's arms. Xiaoling Shi barely had any meat on his bones, and he nearly coughed up blood when the cat collided with his chest. Wang Shi coughed lightly. His Highness is evidently in a good mood today, as he only reprimanded it a little. You better keep an eye on it, though. Should there be a next time? I've lived to this age, and I have never seen anyone dare to anger His Highness twice. Not even a cat. This servant understands, Xiaoling Shi kowtowed several times in a row. Prince Jing waved a hand carelessly. Wang Shi spat at Xiaoling Shi again and followed behind the prince. Wait, they were going to leave? Just like that? Liu had waited so eagerly for so long, but this Prince Jing, who had saved him and even spared him an extra glance, didn't seem to have any intention of helping him further. Escaping from the jaws of the cat had already taken everything Liu had. Since no one could understand him, all he could do was muster up the last of his strength to curl his tail. His fishtail struck the floor lightly. Once, twice. His plea for help was so weak and pitiful, it was practically inaudible. It was enough to make anyone lose hope. But each time Liu wanted to give up, he pushed himself to keep going. Perhaps if he persevered, there would be a miracle. There wasn't. He kept swishing his tail until he couldn't lift it anymore. The boots that had once saved him didn't stop for him again. Liu gradually lost consciousness, his tail falling still. The air settled around him. Prince Jing was already several meters away when he suddenly paused and turned around. A hint of confusion flashed across his cold eyes. "Your Highness, what's wrong?" Wang Shi also looked around, perplexed. Xiaoling Shi had already run off with the white cat. There was no one else here. Brow furrowed, Prince Jing made a shushing motion and walked back, Wang Shi following a step behind. The prince's attention was focused on the ground below his feet. He seemed to be looking for something. He soon arrived back at the spot where he had stopped before. Suddenly, he paused and crouched down. "Your Highness, please don't trouble yourself. What do you need? Let this servant do it instead." Wang Shi clamored to stop Prince Jing, but the prince took no notice. He stubbornly pulled Wang Shi aside and picked something up from the ground with his own hands. A palm-sized fish, to be exact. A fish that had been clamped between the jaws of a cat and was now covered with wounds. "Your Highness, this..." Wang Shi trailed off uncertainly. "Isn't this a very ordinary carp? Why did your Highness come back for this fish?" This was the first time he'd ever been unsure he could understand His Highness. Prince Jing hesitated for a moment. He reached out and touched the limp fish tail with his finger. The tail flopped against the floor lightly, weakly. Prince Jing's expression darkened, but the way he held the fish was exceedingly gentle. Your Highness, please, let me..." Wang Shi spread his arms. Prince Jing shook his head, holding the fish himself, and headed straight for the nearest garden. A dazed and uncomfortable Liu felt a long-awaited warmth. He could have sworn it was blankets and a pillow. Sob. Life as a fish was much too hard. But if he was going to die and turn back into a human, perhaps all this suffering would be worth it. Liu was already celebrating on the inside when he heard the sound of the system. "Congratulations, user! The first part of the Moe Pet System main quest, Tyrant's Priceless Pet Fish. First meeting with the Tyrant has been completed." Chapter 3. Priceless Pet Fish. For a moment, Liu thought he was imagining things. But some time had passed, and it didn't seem like he was turning back into a human. Ah, the system, Liu's best friend to me. Yup. Not only did he not change, some random system popped up. It seemed to be called Moe Pet System? No sooner had he thought that 2 rows of large golden words appeared before his eyes. The system that had spoken up moments ago chimed in again without his prompting. "User, please select main quest or side quest." Liu blinked. It seemed he had accidentally entered a system. The system called him User, so this was his personal golden finger, a cheat code for his transmigration. At least this meant his transformation into a fish hadn't been for nothing. Although he was still a fish and hadn't transformed back into a human, as long as he had this golden finger, perhaps he could find a way back to normal if he followed the system's instructions. The previous prompt had said he had completed the first step of the main quest. Out of habit, Liu tried to tap the words main quest as he would on a touchscreen, but what was a routine action for a human was quite a challenge for a fish. His fins were too short to reach. He flapped his fins rather desperately, thinking, if only he could tap it, when suddenly the main quest flashed of its own accord, expanding into several lines of text. Got it. I don't need to touch anything with this system. I can control it using my thoughts. All the text under the main quest was dark, except for the very top line, which was lit up. Each line probably corresponded to a different main quest. With the desperate desire to turn back into a human thrumming through his veins, Liu skimmed through each main quest. They were all about fish. There was nothing about humans. Other than Tyrant's priceless pet fish, which he had seen already, there was also Tyrant's pet fish for revitalizing the family, postpartum care for fish, etc. Got more and more ridiculous as he read on. But the only one he could access was the topmost one, which glowed Tyrant's priceless pet fish. Liu had no other choice but to tap on it, albeit reluctantly. The progress bar and description for Tyrant's priceless pet fish immediately popped up. First, he looked through the description. It was super simple. All he needed to do was become the Tyrant's beloved pet fish. Although it was a little clickbaity, it at least matched the name of the system. Moe Pet System. Wait, wasn't he forgetting something? This Tyrant kept coming up, but he still had no idea who that was supposed to be. The system seemed to sense his confusion, and a transparent window popped up, surrounded by swirling rose petals. Uh-oh. You know it's going to be fun when they have swirling rose petals, a la Oron Host Club. The window displayed Prince Jing's frustratingly handsome face. The Tyrant was Prince Jing. Liu cracked a smile. So he'd completed the first meeting with the Tyrant. When he encountered Prince Jing, sure, this Prince Jing looked pretty cold and didn't speak much, but why did the system have to call him a tyrant? The system had no response this time. Prince Jing's handsome face remained unchanged in the pop-up. Did this mean he had to continue tapping? After some pondering, he poked Prince Jing's face with his tail. The system popped up with another prompt. The fluttering rose petals automatically reconfigured into a blurb about Prince Jing. He was the fifth son of the Emperor of Great Chu, Mu Tianxi, and was born with a speech impediment. He couldn't talk. Prince Jing was Mu Tianxi? Liu felt like he had been struck by lightning. No wonder Prince Jing's name seemed so familiar. No wonder Prince Jing was way too quiet compared to Wang Shi or Xiaoling Shi. Liu had been so preoccupied with running for his life that he didn't realize it at the time, but now he finally knew exactly which book he had fallen into. He knew the name Mu Tianxi very well indeed. He was the male lead from a web novel Liu had stayed up all night to read when he was bored. The Tyrant and His Delicate Concubine. Mu Tianxi was a cold, ruthless tyrant who wouldn't hesitate to slaughter someone's entire family if he was displeased. But because he was mute, he still inspired a little pity. Liu had transmigrated into a novel with a system. Never mind that this was a book about a tyrant. Why did he transmigrate into a fish? Let's not worry about tyrants for now. Why did he get paired up with a Moe Pet System? And why were all his quests about fish? The system cut in with a voice message, speaking slowly. You've already transmigrated, so you might as well accept your fate. The purpose of your existence is to help improve the tyrannical male lead's personality. Apparently, having a pet can help cultivate one's tender, caring side. Liu was dumbfounded. He knew this system had ulterior motives. He didn't want to do these weird tasks at all. Was the system going to force him to do them, even if he didn't want to? The system answered immediately. The Moe pet system will not force its user, but if the user does not complete the quests, then you will never turn back into a human. What? I can't go back even if I die? You can't. The system's voice held a note of finality. Failing to regain human form means retaining the lifespan of a fish. In the end, a fish will turn into fish bones and fish ash. What if I choose not to do these quests at all? Asked Liu. You will turn into fish bones and fish ash. Immediately. Liu wanted to curse. Wasn't this the definition of forcing him? The system piped up again to emphasize. The Moe pet system will not force its user. Can you please not repeat yourself? Liu didn't want to turn into fish bones or fish ash, but he had no interest in turning the tyrant's personality around either. All he wanted to know was how he could become human again. The system spoke. Once the main quest has progressed to a certain point, one of the steps will involve becoming human again. That's more like it. Okay, it's just a main quest. Fine, I'll do it. He was acting nonchalant, but Liu was hyper-aware that he could not risk playing around with his own life. The Moe pet system had one thing right. He had already transmigrated. He'd already seen for himself that the system was his golden finger and could appear in his consciousness, so he had to believe it. Now that he'd resolved to do these quests, Liu started to calm down. He took a good look at his current quest, Priceless Pet Fish. There were a number of steps to this quest. The first step, first meeting with the tyrant, was already completed. The second step, interact with the tyrant, was glowing. There was nothing else beyond that. It looked like he'd have to complete step 2 before he unlocked any more instructions for the next step. What a stingy system. It couldn't even be bothered to give him a more detailed prompt. Interact with the tyrant? Interact how? Liu was a little frustrated. What connection did the two of them even have? Prince Jing was a prince. Liu was merely a fish from the imperial kitchen. Did he have to turn himself into fish soup or braised fish so that Prince Jing could eat him? The system chimed in. Use your brain. Think harder. What the fuck, system? Why did it feel like it was taunting him? Liu couldn't figure anything out from the main quest. Then an idea came to mind. He went to check on the side quests. Side quests were optional, and anyone who'd ever played a game knew that side quests usually weren't too hard and could come with generous rewards. The main quest was way too weird, but maybe Liu could pull some clues from the side quest. His investigation proved to be fruitless, however, when he found the side quests were all grayed out, meaning it wasn't time for them yet. For example, one of the side quests was turn into a koi. That one looked quite nice. If he had to be a fish for the time being, a koi fish would at least be better than the kind of carp that was regular feature on the menu, right? Again, he's not wrong. Even an idiot knew koi fish were lucky. Why wasn't this task available? Side quests have prerequisites, the system informed him. You can only accept the quest once the prerequisites have been met. What prerequisites does the koi quest have? The system replied. Complete the main quest, Priceless Pet Fish. Fuck, I can't skip being a pet fish? That's right. Liu was clearly a man, but now he had to be another man's pet fish. And not just any man. A man with a bad temper who couldn't talk. Wasn't this way too hard? Did completing this quest even come with rewards? If the rewards weren't all that great, what was even the point? Liu asked. What kind of rewards do I get for completing priceless pet fish? There will be rewards, right? Yes, the system said. You've already completed the first step, so the strength of your fishtail has increased. Please use it carefully. The reward for completing the second step is an inventory that you can take around with you. The rest of the rewards will be revealed to you as you continue to unlock new tasks. Liu's eyes lit up. He didn't know how useful a stronger tail would be, but an inventory would be great. He could put stuff in it. Yes, you can, Liu. You can put stuff in your inventory. Bravo, my man. Bravo. Being a fish was so inconvenient. He needed to get over his embarrassment fast so he could complete these tasks. While he was wrapped up in his thoughts, the system alerted him that he was about to exit. Liu woke up. As he opened his fish eyes, he came to the realization that he was lying in a blue and white porcelain tank filled with water. So his conversation with the system had all happened inside his own head. There was no way to tell what had been going on from the outside. Back in reality, he had passed out from everything he'd gone through at the claws of the white cat and from being out of the water for too long. He'd already been unconscious for 2 hours. Pain crashed down on his body in waves. He had yet to fully recover from his cat-induced injuries. A little dazed, Liu looked around at his surroundings. Real quick pause. If that system voice gets too annoying, let me know. I can easily just do a slightly more robotic voice instead of what I chose, but I thought it would be kind of funny. Before he lost consciousness, he remembered thumping his tail on the ground until it nearly broke, yet no one had come to his rescue. Shouldn't he still be lying on the floor tiles right now? How did this change of scenery happen? It didn't matter. He was injured and he needed to rest, recover, and figure out where he was. He also had to find Prince Jing as soon as possible so he could complete this task. The system voice is great. It fits its personality perfectly. All right. I'll keep it then, Momar's Rover. With that figured out, Liu set about carefully examining the world inside the tank. This blue and white porcelain tank was a massive upgrade from the dark fish basket he found himself in when he first transmigrated. It didn't have the oily, smoky smell of the Imperial kitchen, and it was bright and well ventilated, although the top of the tank was a bit on the tall side. Evil fairy is exactly how the system acts. Yep, I thought so. And it was bright and well ventilated, although the top of the tank was a bit on the tall side. When he looked up, he could only see a portion of the ceiling. Although the opening was small, he could see he was in a room with carved beams and painted rafters. This was clearly a place of wealth. The water in the tank was very clear. Aside from a few aquatic plants swaying gently in the ripples, he was the tank's only occupant. Snow-white stones lay beneath him. Liu observed the stones for a while. Each one was round, with any harsh edges smoothed away. While he lay on them, it felt rather comfortable. It made for a good place to heal from his injuries. Liu wanted to rip off a piece of the plant, but after several minutes of struggle, he knew he could forget about using his fins as hands to tear it off. He could barely even use them to grab hold of the plant. No matter how hard he tried, he just couldn't get it to work. He remembered what the system had said. It had boosted his tail's power. Perhaps he could try that. Liu swished his tail at the plant, not hoping for much. Ow! Ow, 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 ow! That simple action tore at his injury. Liu grimaced in pain, regretting his impulsiveness slightly. His tail didn't seem to have made any difference. But just as Liu was thinking the system had a habit of lying to fish, a glossy green leaf drifted down gently and landed on top of his head. Liu glanced at his tail excitedly. He pulled the leaf down with his mouth and used it to cover up most of his body, then lay back down on his bed of white rocks. After all, the best way to heal from an injury was by lying down with a blanket. He'd rest some and recover his energy. Once he felt a little better, he'd look for Prince Jing. He slept for a while before he was woken by a soft creaking sound. It was the sound of a door opening, he realized. Someone had entered the room he was in. It must be that person who'd saved him and put him in the tank. I'm multitasking queen. Love it. Night Owl Workshop. You do that. This tank contained water, plants, and even smooth stones. There was no way it wasn't supposed to be a fish tank. I stay here and there and work. Yeah! Multitasking! If someone had gone to the trouble of arranging all this, it must mean they wanted to keep him, not eat him? Who could this person be? The footsteps came closer, unhurried. With an unexpected feeling of anticipation, Liu raised his head a little and waited. Before long, a matchless handsome face appeared above the tank. Oh my god, wasn't that the target of his quests? Prince Jing? Mu Tianqi? Did that mean Prince Jing was the one who saved him? Liu was both surprised and delighted. This was too easy. To be honest, he still rejected the thought of being someone's pet fish, but now that he knew his savior was the target of his quest, he could suck it up. So, what exactly should a good pet fish do? Please his owner and make him happy, of course. Liu tossed his leaf-covered head about and eagerly blew a little bubble towards Prince Jing. I'm such a cute fish. Please don't cut my head off. Please don't kill me. I'm too cute. I love Liu. Chapter 4. Fish-flavored shredded pork. Liu was keen to win Prince Jing over, and for good reason. Having read the original book, Liu knew that, despite Mu Tianxi's tyrannical character archetype, he didn't start off as an oppressive dictator who killed people without batting an eye. When Mu Tianxi was still just Prince Jing, he was at most a little cold and indifferent. Use agenda. Act cute, don't die. Good agenda. His muteness meant he had long since lost the right to the throne. But in the end, it was he, the most unlikely heir, who had climbed step by step up to the throne. With a cold, ruthless decisiveness, he had bathed both his court and back palace with blood, completing his transformation from a silent, cold prince to a cruel tyrant whom the world feared. This change didn't happen overnight. Mu Tianxi underwent a huge emotional journey before he reached his full tyrannical potential, but it would be impossible to explain the trials and tribulations he experienced in just a few sentences. In any case, since Mu Tianxi was still a prince right now, that meant his personality hadn't changed yet. In other words, this tyrant hadn't reached the point where he'd chop off someone's head as soon as they look at him. That much was clear just from the fact that Mu Tianxi had not called for that white cat's execution when he first caught it. Prince Jing may have punished the white cat for running into him, giving off a cold and heartless impression all the while, but he did let the cat go afterward. Not a single drop of cat blood was spilled. If this had happened after his ascension to the throne, that cat wouldn't have stood a chance. But right now, Prince Jing's mindset was simple. An eye for an eye, not an eye for your whole family. Plus, Prince Jing had saved a fish like Liu. Wasn't that an example in and of itself? So it wasn't hard to understand why the system wanted him to complete these tasks and improve the tyrant's personality. Better to start now, while Mu Tianxi was still Prince Jing and had yet to evolve into a true tyrant. Liu deliberately adopted a humbler demeanor for the purpose of this task. If he was going to be Prince Jing's pet fish, he had to try to get into his owner's good graces. But it was a tall order to ask Prince Jing to recognize devotion just from the movements of a fish. Liu blew bubbles until his mouth was sore. Prince Jing's eyes flickered over, but his gaze remained impassive, like an ice-capped mountain that was impossible to melt. Liu very quickly exhausted himself. After everything he did to try and get into the prince's good graces, couldn't even get him to crack the ghost of a smile. Wang Shi Gong, however, snorted and chuckled. Look, Your Highness, the fish you saved has come back to life. It's even sneezing. Wang Shi grinned widely from behind Prince Jing, cheerily watching the little cart blow bubbles. How intriguing. Wang Shi didn't think the fish would survive after seeing how limp and motionless it had been earlier. But in only a short amount of time, it was brimming with energy again. Hello? Can't you get it right? I'm not sneezing, I'm saying hi. Liu blew an annoyed bubble at Wang Shi. Oh, well, it's pointless. It wasn't like he could make humans understand fish. Swishing his tail hurt too much, so he could only continue blowing bubbles. But this only served to deepen Wang Shi's misunderstanding. Concerned about the fish's excessive amount of bubble blowing, he asked Prince Jing carefully, Your Highness, is the fish sick? Why does it keep sneezing? You're the one sneezing! Your whole family's sneezing! Before Prince Jing could react, poor misunderstood Liu blew a long string of angry bubbles. Wang Shi immediately grew nervous. Your Highness, is this fish choking on water? Prince Jing listened silently. He might not be able to speak, but he wasn't deaf or blind. His mind was as sharp as a knife. How could a fish sneeze or choke on water? Wang Shi was clearly just trying to coax a smile out of him. That being said, this fish, it was a little too lively. Mu Tianxi had never seen a fish this animated before. As he gazed down at the fish that kept blowing bubbles in the porcelain tank and the leaf blanketed over its body, his lips involuntarily twitched upward into a smile. Aww. Master! Prince Jing, look over here! Over here! Lying under the blanket made moving a little cumbersome. Liu hesitated for a brief moment before abandoning the leaf blanket he had acquired not long ago to swim happily towards Prince Jing. The second task in the main quest was to interact with the tyrant. Despite all the bubbles he'd blown just now, no prompts had popped up, so the system must not count these as interactions. This fish scamming system never told him what constituted as interacting. Liu had to just keep throwing things at the wall, hoping one of them would stick. He'd barely come face to face with Prince Jing before now, so he really had to take advantage of this opportunity and complete the second task in one go. It was strange, though. Prince Jing was born mute and couldn't talk. Liu was a fish, and no one could understand him, effectively making him mute as well. In a way, he and Prince Jing had the same struggle. But since neither of them could speak, there was no way for them to communicate with each other. How were they supposed to interact? Liu went through his mental catalog of tricks. As his eyes landed on the underwater plant, the cursed seaweed dance came to his mind. Maybe he should do a bit of the seaweed dance for Prince Jing. The more he thought about it, the more he warmed up to the idea. If he couldn't find a chance to interact with the prince, he'd just have to create one himself. But with his injuries this severe, he couldn't just sway his tail however he liked. He'd just have to keep his lower half still and focus on moving his upper half, which should seem the least amount of harm. Imagining himself as a cute underwater plant, Liu just went for it, wiggling the top half of his body up and down in an exaggerated wave. Mu Tianxi and Wang Shi were at a loss for words. Prince Jing stared at the little carp. He was starting to think this fish was a little abnormal, but Prince Jing's face didn't betray any of his thoughts. He wasn't someone who let his emotions show easily, no matter how surprised he was. Dude, if I saw a fish suddenly doing like a hula dance in front of me, or like their form of a belly dance, I'd be like, huh. Same. That'd be like, I think it's time for bed. Like, I have been awake too long. Wang Shi, who was standing off to the side, felt like his eyes were playing tricks on him. He swallowed hard and said, Your Highness, did this fish pull a muscle? Liu is trying to interpretive dance his way into Prince Jing's heart. Yep. It works. It seems to be abusing him for sure. Wang Shi's first thought was that the fish, with all its swaying, was trying to please Prince Jing, but Wang Gong Gong had only ever heard of cats and dogs who were intelligent enough to connect with humans. Could fish be that clever too? Logically, they couldn't. Therefore, Wang Gong Gong was more inclined to believe the fish must have pulled a muscle. Liu gaped. You pulled a muscle! Your whole family has pulled a muscle! Wang Shi was such a mood killer. Liu didn't want to dance anymore. The system didn't say a thing, even though Liu had danced for so long. He stopped dancing out of spite and drifted down to rest on the bed of white rocks. Swimming was the first ability he'd unlocked after his transformation. Now that he could float and sink as he wished, he felt incredibly comfortable. Prince Jing's eyes never left Liu. Seeing that the fish had stopped moving, he seemed to be contemplating something. Your whole family, said me. Yeah. That and his sob, sob, sob. Wang Shi immediately launched into a new topic of conversation. Your Highness, why did this fish stop moving? Liu bristled. It's so hard being a pet. Why was there always a hater? Exercising great restraint, Liu turned around. As much as he wanted to sulk, he had a task to complete. Hey, system, what counts as interacting? Liu tried to call out to the system. If the seaweed dance wasn't enough, this was going to be way too hard. Perhaps the system was getting impatient too, because it decided to offer him a hint. Interacting involves a back and forth. Liu finally understood why, despite all his efforts, he wasn't able to complete step 2. This whole time, he was the only one moving vigorously, while Prince Jing remained unmoved. That couldn't be considered a back and forth at all. But how could he get Prince Jing to reciprocate? Liu sunk deep into his thoughts. Not even the seaweed dance was enough to sway his tyrant master. Sob, sob, sob. It was much too hard being a fish. While Liu was preoccupied with his dilemma, Wang Shi stared at the fish, pondering. Wang Shi had served Prince Jing for many generations. Many years, not generations. I'm so used to cultivation ones where it's generations. Wang Shi had served Prince Jing for many years, so he knew well that His Highness's countenance was cold and his heart colder. It was rare for him to care about anything or anyone. But Prince Jing had not only found and saved this little carp, he'd even brought it here with his own 2 hands. So what did this unusual act of saving the fish mean? It meant the fish had caught His Highness's interest. His Highness had taken a liking to this fish. Prince Jing had even ordered him to prepare the fish tank to put the fish into. Doesn't all these signs point to him wanting to keep it as a pet? Wang Shi was so happy he couldn't help smiling. Who cared that the kind of pet he wanted to keep? There was finally a hint of warmth in this ice-cold prince. Wang Shi made a few subtle comments, but didn't dare to say anything too pointed. He was afraid that if he overstepped, Prince Jing's temper would flare up and he wouldn't want the fish anymore. That was why Wang Shi kept beating around the bush. He noticed the prince's eyes hadn't left the little carp, steadily following its movements. While Prince Jing didn't react in any obvious way when the little carp wiggled around, he also didn't immediately turn around and leave. When the little carp stopped swimming, the prince's expression remained inscrutable, but the corners of his mouth that had lifted just a little bit fell back down. He was slightly unhappy. Wang Shi fretted on the inside as he watched the scene unfolding before him. This isn't how you take care of a fish. You can't just look. Wang Shi guessed that Prince Jing had never kept a fish before, nor any kind of pet, and was probably at a bit of a loss. He suggested, Your Highness, this fish, might it be hungry? Wu Tianxi shot a fleeting glance at him. Correctly interpreting his silence as a command for him to continue, Wang Shi explained with a smile. Humans lose energy when they're hungry. This lowly servant is thinking perhaps fish are the same. Perhaps it'll have more strength when it's full. I already prepared some fish feed. Shall I feed some to it? When your master has so few friends that you are happy, he decided to keep a soup fish so he has someone to interact with. That's basically it for a lot of this book. A lot of the interactions are like, dude, yes. Interacting with something alive. Look at you, buddy. Good for you. Like, and I kind of love that. Wu Tianxi folded over before giving a small nod. Wang Shi bowed, then quickly produced 2 bamboo boxes from his sleeves. One was filled with red fish feed, the other with green fish feed. Each piece was about the size of a grain of rice. As Prince Jing watched quietly, Wang Shi sprinkled a few pieces into the porcelain tank. Liu, who had been deeply engrossed in his thoughts, suddenly smelled food. His stomach immediately growled, reminding him that he hadn't had anything to eat in all the time he'd spent as a fish. Was there delicious food here? Liu glanced around at his surroundings, his attention soon catching on the flecks of red and green floating in the water. Whatever it was, it smelled amazing, somehow even more tantalizing than the delicacies he'd eaten as a human. He couldn't complete his quest on an empty stomach, Liu reasoned, and immediately dashed towards the source of the scent, circling one of the red pieces. This seemed to be fish food? Yeah, it was a long day for Liu. Yeah. He'd heard fish food was made from either flour or bugs. He didn't know which kind this was, but it smelled so good he really wanted to eat it. Liu cursed himself for acclimating to fish tastes so quickly, but he was practically drooling. In the end, his hunger triumphed over his dignity. Uh, um, how exactly did fish eat again? Liu approached cautiously, batting at the fish feed lightly with his fin. Suddenly, he felt an unyielding gaze on him. Liu looked up directly into Prince Jing's ink-black eyes, staring down at him without blinking. Liu froze. He'd originally wanted to use his fins to hold the fish feed, and eat like a civilized person. But if Prince Jing noticed something was off... Prince Jing was mute, sure, but his mind was still sharp as a dagger. Liu hurriedly chomped down on the fish feed and then dove under the safety of his leaf, too embarrassed to eat like a fish in front of Prince Jing. Better to hide somewhere while he ate than get back to working on his quest. He's shy. Kind of. Liu gulped down a few bites, the fragrant food melting in his mouth. Thank God. It was made from flour and not bugs. But why did it smell like fish-flavored shredded pork? Fish-flavored shredded pork is a famous Sichuan dish. Who cared as long as he had food? Fish-flavored shredded pork was good, so what was there to complain about? He couldn't eat human food anymore, so this was actually a balm to his soul. Liu scarfed down the entire piece of red fish food, but his stomach was still rumbling. He decided to sneak out and grab a few more pieces. Hyper-aware that Prince Jing was scrutinizing his every move and petrified that he might notice something unusual, Liu made sure to take only one piece per excursion. He would seize one, take it away, and only sneak out for another one once he had finished the one he had already had. As he ate, he soon realized the red pieces tasted much better than the green pieces. The green pieces were a little bland. Prince Jing watched, his gaze deep, as the little carp ate. For just a moment, he thought the way the little carp batted at the fish food looked almost human. But it happened so quickly, he couldn't be sure. One second. I just need to blow my nose. I hear myself starting to get a little nasally. Chapter 5. The fish was petted. Prince Jing was still watching the fish intently when Wang Shi handed him both boxes of fish food. Wang Shi's eyes were filled with anticipation. Having served Prince Jing for many years, Wang Shi knew exactly what his master wanted without the prince having to say a single word. Smiling, he said sincerely, "Your Highness, this old servant has a few things to take care of, but the fish still seems to be hungry. Could you help me feed the fish?" Mu Tianxi paused for a second, surprised. Wang Shi pushed the two boxes towards him and continued very seriously. "There are two kinds of feed. The red one tastes like fish-flavored shredded pork, and the green one is mushroom and greens. This servant thinks the little carp seems to prefer the red one." Mu Tianxi couldn't help but agree. The little carp did seem to have a little more life when it ate the red feed. Mu Tianxi silently accepted the red feed box. Wang Shi smiled until his eyes looked like two crescent moons. After reminding Prince Jing not to overfeed the fish, he made up some excuse and left the two of them alone. Mu Tianxi hesitated, holding the box of fish feed. After all, he was treading in unfamiliar waters here. Down below, Liu waited and waited, but when it didn't seem like Wang Shi was going to feed him anymore, the hungry little carp swam up to the water's surface, waiting expectantly. Liu and Prince Jing, fish and human, stared into each other's eyes. Liu was startled. He hadn't expected to see Prince Jing. Then he remembered he was merely a fish. It didn't matter how long he stared at Prince Jing. Prince probably wouldn't notice. What was Prince Jing about to do? Liu couldn't figure it out. The tall, imposing youth couldn't speak, always keeping his thoughts hidden behind those dark, fathomless eyes. Mu Tianqi stood in front of the tank for a full 10 minutes before he threw a handful of red pellets into the water with a little too much force, nearly pelting Liu with the torrential downpour of fish food. Cloudy with a chance of fish pellets, anybody? Liu looked at Prince Jing in shock. He almost couldn't believe it. By the time he realized what had happened, his body had already instinctually launched itself at the fish food that Prince Jing had tossed in. Turning in a beautiful curve in the water, the little carp carefully held the food in his mouth. In his chest, his heart went pit-a-pat. Not only had the tyrant saved him, he had even personally fed him. As soon as he swallowed the fish food, the system, which had been silent up until now, suddenly came to life. Congratulations, user. You have completed the second part of the Moe Pet System main quest. Tyrants but priceless pet fish. Interact with the tyrant. Congratulations. You will now receive the corresponding reward. Hugh could have burst into tears. So this was what interaction meant. In one big gulp, he devoured the last of the food that Prince Jing had tossed in. Belly full and fit to bursting, Liu drifted down to lie on the bed of snowy white rocks to take a quick nap. Anyone, human or fish, would feel sleepy after eating a full meal. Now that the second task was taken care of, Liu didn't think it would be too late if he wanted to collect his reward and took a little nap first. It would be too late if he wanted to collect his reward and took a little nap first. My mistake. Thankfully, although the experience had been frightening, nothing dangerous had happened. Liu couldn't fall asleep wherever he wanted when he had been human, but he had no such problem now. As a fish, he could sleep however he wanted, upright or lying down. Very soon, Liu fell into the embrace of a dream. Recalling what Wang Shi had said, Prince Jing glanced at the little carp, then tapped on the tank with 2 fingers. Liu, who had been teetering on the precipice of sleep, was jolted awake by the sound. What is it? I want to sleep. Some people still have injuries to recover from. If it hadn't been for the quest, Liu wouldn't want to have anything to do with the tyrant at all. So he says now. Having noticed that the fish was still lying limply on the rock, Prince Jing extended a hand. Liu, who was still attempting to fall back asleep, felt the water move. What's happening? Liu was immediately wide awake, his terror chasing away any notions of sleep. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Prince Jing's hand reaching into the tank. Liu flinched, fighting the urge to swish his tail. He was still injured, for one thing, so moving his tail hurt. And secondly, daring to swish his tail in Prince Jing's face would only mean one thing. Dead fish. Liu felt like his heart was strapped into a roller coaster. But to his surprise, Prince Jing did not immediately grab him. Instead, he nudged him, lightly off the bed of snowy white rock. Did Prince Jing not want him to go to sleep? Liu was utterly confused as Prince Jing's finger pushed him forward. Prodded by the prince's finger, Liu swam around nearly the entirety of the tank. He didn't know what Prince Jing wanted. Fear slowly crept out of his heart, but after a while he realized the prince seemed perfectly content with nudging him around and didn't seem to want to do anything else. Liu's pulse gradually calmed down. Occasionally, he'd give a few lazy swipes of his fins as a show of cooperation. Inevitably, his soft, tender fin would brush against Prince Jing's finger. Mu Tianxi froze. His stare drilled holes into the insolent fish, who was completely unaware of what it had just done. If a person had dared to be so impudent, Prince Jing would have had them torn limb from limb without question. What an impudent fish. But this was a fish, not a person. There was no need to be so harsh. Prince Jing's defenses were lowered, and he smirked, the corner of his lips lifting mischievously. Liu was splashing around in the water with his fins when the tip of his tail felt hot. Immediately, he felt an unnerving sensation emitting from the back there. He turned his head to look. The tyrant's expression was impassive as always, but his hand, the same hand that would kill without hesitation. What was it doing? Don't curl my tail around your finger. My private area is right there. It tickles. Don't just touch wherever you want. Hey! The little carp's tail trembled violently. Help! He didn't think the tyrant would pet a fish. With Prince Jing pushing him along, Liu made several laps around the tank and steadily felt more and more energetic. Whoops. The prince finally stopped at last and let him go. Liu swam by himself for a while and soon realized his stomach no longer felt bloated. Was Prince Jing forcing him to swim to give him a chance to digest the enormous meal he had just eaten? There's no way, right? He thought, amused. He was pretty sure Prince Jing wasn't that kind of person who looked out for a little animal. Liu added this incident to his collection of other unsolved mysteries, where it joined Prince Jing in saving his injured and unconscious self. Prince Jing raised his eyebrows slightly as he realized his sleeve had gotten wet. Liu thought that Prince Jing would change immediately. After all, he was a prince, accustomed to a life of luxuries and riches. There was no way he'd allow himself to wear dirty clothes, even if it was just a wet sleeve. Prince Jing left shortly after, just as Liu expected. Liu could no longer see his face peering at him from above the tank. But oddly enough, Liu didn't hear the sound of a door opening and closing. What kind of master would change by himself? Servants were always at their beck and call to help with things like that. Although Prince Jing couldn't speak, he could still open the door and order for someone outside to wait on him. Liu waited and waited, but he didn't hear anything. After the nap he'd taken, his tail didn't throb as much and he felt a lot better. It seemed like fish recovered faster than humans. Either that, or it was because he had the system. Liu decided to try using his tail again. Unless Prince Jing walked over himself, it was practically impossible to see the prince from Liu's position inside the fish tank. Liu wanted to confirm that the prince wasn't in the room anymore before collecting his reward from the Moe pet system, just in case the prince wanted to play with him again, only to find an unconscious fish. Liu tested his tail, swinging it back and forth a few times. It really didn't hurt anymore. He summoned every bit of power he had and with a swoosh managed to launch himself high into the air. Before his leap of faith, Liu had already mentally prepared himself to take a good look at the world outside of his tank. The room was just as he imagined, ornate and magnificent, befitting a prince. There's Prince Jing. He's still in the room? The moment he leapt into the air, he spotted Prince Jing's figure, standing only a few meters away. His black robes had yet to be fastened completely, so Liu had an unobstructed view of the smooth lines of his muscles. Dark eyes gazed towards the little carp, shocked and stunned. For a moment, man and fish stared at each other. Oh no! How did he manage to catch Prince Jing in such a state of undress? He thought he would have finished changing by now. Liu, whee! In addition to overestimating how quickly Prince Jing would get changed, Liu must have been confused and underestimated the complexity of historical clothing. Now it looked like he was some pervert spying on a beautiful man. Liu quickly took it all in. Everything he was supposed to see as well as everything he wasn't. His face burned. He twisted his body and dove back into the fish tank with a little splash. Why didn't this Prince Jing hide behind something if he was going to change? Alright, fine, there was only a fish in the room with him. There was no need for him to hide anything. Liu darted under his leaf blanket as soon as he heard Prince Jing's footsteps approaching. Prince Jing may not have realized Liu had been looking at him, but he wasn't blind. He definitely would have noticed a fish jumping straight out of the tank, right? The prince definitely noticed. Liu lay there, heart in his throat, trying his best to pretend he was a normal fish. By now, Prince Jing had already arrived at the tank. Once again, he felt the uneasy sensation of the prince's piercing gaze on him. He felt like there was someone pointing a blade at his back. Liu discreetly turned around so his tail was facing Prince Jing in an effort to cover up what he did. Your Highness! Your Highness! Before Prince Jing could do anything, Wang Shi's anxious call came from outside. Liu let out a sigh of relief. Prince Jing fastened his jade buttons and took one last, long look at the suspicious little fish. Then he strode to the door and pulled it open. Wang Shi greeted him respectfully. Your Highness, the Emperor has sent someone. The Emperor was Prince Jing's father. The prince's expression turned serious as he followed Wang Shi out to accept the imperial edict. Prince Jing was finally gone. Liu was delighted, but he stayed as still as a statue, pretending he didn't understand anything that was happening outside his fish tank. After the sound of footsteps faded into the distance, he swam to a quiet corner of the tank and quickly entered the system. The second part of the priceless pet fish quest was complete, which meant he could finally collect his reward of inventory space. While he was at it, he also had to take a look at what the third step was. At this rate, he'd surely be turning back into a human any day now. Liu was very pleased with himself. He had just entered the system when a prompt popped up asking him if he would like to check out his inventory. Liu selected yes, overjoyed, and his inventory immediately opened up before his eyes, giving him a clear view of the inside. All Liu's praises caught in his throat as soon as he laid eyes on it. He thought his inventory would at least be the size of a storage room, but this was about the size of an adult's palm. No way! What's the point of having such a tiny space? So stingy! The system replied. Since the user thinks the space is too small, would you like to give up your reward? Liu had almost forgotten the system could read his thoughts and shook his head hurriedly. No, it's better than nothing. This is currently only one inventory slot, the system informed him. Side quests can increase inventory slots. Slots? Sorry. That's more like it, as long as I can get more. But this was all the space he had for now. What could he put in it? At most, he could probably fit 1 or 2 things in there. Despite having only been a fish for a few hours, Liu had been entertaining a lot of secret daydreams about this space. He had envisioned being able to store an enormous pile of fish feed, a bunch of medicine for his injuries, or even a large tank of fresh water for emergencies. That way, he could be a rich and carefree fish. But there were 2 problems. First, he hadn't managed to acquire any of those things, and second, it turned out he only had a tiny amount of space. For a moment, he was at a loss for what he could even do with the little resources he had. Meanwhile, Prince Jing had stepped out to receive an imperial edict, but who knew when he'd be back? He didn't have much time, so he just had to accept the space now and figure it out later. A ray of light shot out from the inventory, landing somewhere near Liu's left fin. When he took a look after light had faded, he realized that one of the scales beneath his fin had changed into the color of jade. Okay, so initially, I guess that was where I had marked out to stop, but I'm actually going to keep going. Give me a second to reorganize where I want to go. Because that took a lot less time than I thought it would. Give me a second. I'm saying thank you. Yeah. Well, let's keep going. I might do chapter 9. We'll see. We'll just keep going and I'll stop after a bit. But first, Chapter 6, The Fish Swimming at the Bottom of the Bowl. The system gave Liu a tip. You don't need to enter the system first if you want to use the inventory. To use the shortcut, you can tap the jade scale 3 times. You can put anything within your field of vision inside, so long as it fits, using just your thoughts. The system continued talking. Liu smiled. As limited as the inventory space was, its method of usage was pretty cool. Not too shabby. He went to check on the main quest in the system. Just as he thought, the second task, Priceless Pet Fish, was now completed. The third task, which had previously been hidden away, was now revealed. The third task, Get Along with the Tyrant. Time limit, 3 days. Liu was speechless. Get along with the Tyrant, interacting with the Tyrant. Didn't the system know anything else? Not to mention the bar for interacting had already been so high. He hadn't been able to do it alone, and he needed Prince Jing to participate as well. So what on earth did getting along with entail? There was a fucking time limit, too? What was going to happen if he didn't complete it before time ran out? Exceeding the time limit counts as a failure, and the user will become fish bones and fish. All right, enough. I got it. I just have to complete the task within 3 days, right? Can I at least rest today and start tomorrow? Sorry. The timer started from the moment you completed the second task. What? Liu took a closer look and realized it was right. Right next to the task was a small countdown, seconds ticking away slowly. This fucking system! Why didn't it let him know the timer had already started? What if he had slept for 3 days? So time still passed while he was in the system. Liu couldn't waste any more of it. He quickly exited and came back to the real world, arriving just in time to hear Wang Shi's voice. It turned out that while he was accepting his reward, Prince Jing and Wang Shi had already returned. Wang Shi had spoken for a while. Luckily, the prince hadn't come over to visit. He hurriedly swam around a little, shaking himself out of his dazed stupor to prove he was still very much alive. Pressing up against one side of the tank to listen, he could faintly hear Wang Shi's muffled voice. Why did the Emperor call your highness to Qianxing Palace so suddenly? The eunuch asked. This old servant heard the Emperor visit Shangqiu Palace, so I thought the noble consort must have said something to him. After all, that white cat is the consort's noble, beloved pet. Something seemed to occur to Prince Jing. A mocking smile curled his lips. This servant didn't mean anything else by that, said Wang Shi hastily. Of course your highness wouldn't care for such things, but You do, at the very least, have to show some respect to the Emperor. I'll accompany you and explain things clearly to him. I refuse to believe the noble consort could conceal the truth. When Prince Jing showed no reaction, Wang Shi continued, Then I'll follow, Your Highness. Wu Tianxi thought about it for a while before reaching over and blocking Wang Shi's way. He shook his head. Wang Shi froze. Your Highness doesn't want this servant to come this time? As Prince Jing's personal servant, Wang Shi had taken care of the prince since he was a child. He could tell what the prince wanted just from a single glance. If the prince wanted to speak, Wang Shi was almost always able to say exactly what the prince wanted. The sudden summons of Prince Jing to Qianqing Palace led Wang Shi to guess the noble consort had probably hinted something to the emperor. Without Wang Shi there by his side, wasn't the prince doomed to take the fall? Prince Jing's dark eyes flicked to the top of his head expressionlessly. Wang Shi understood at once. The emperor ordered your highness to go alone? You're not allowed to bring anyone with you? Prince Jing nodded. Wang Shi was speechless. The emperor summoned Prince Jing and yet wouldn't allow him to speak? What was the meaning of this? The worst-case scenario would be if, after years of Shangshu Palace exerting its influence, the emperor turned his affections away from his highness and onto the second prince. Wang Shi's eyes immediately burned red. No, this old servant will follow your highness even if it means my death. Prince Jing looked at his sorrowful face and hesitated a moment before tapping his shoulder lightly. Deliberately going against the emperor's wishes would only give the other side an advantage. Sorry, I heard a slight noise in the corner and I'm just making sure it's not another mouse. Prince Jing didn't think a mere noble consort could do anything to him. Then what does your highness plan to do? Wang Shi sniffled. Prince Jing's distant gaze landed on the porcelain fish tank that stood behind Wang Shi. Your highness wants to... Wang Shi was shocked. He couldn't mean... The way Prince Jing held himself was calm and relaxed, an easy grace about him. The very picture of confidence. I said the worst. Hi, Star! Yeah, we had a mouse in here during one of the streams, and that was quite a surprise. So I'm glad that I think it was just some normal pipe noises. Welcome, Star. Came at a fun part. The way Prince Jing held himself was calm and relaxed, an easy grace about him. The very picture of confidence. Wang Shi gritted his teeth. Since your highness has already made his decision, the servant will obey and go prepare. Liu heard everything. The noble consort wanted to make things difficult for Prince Jing, and Wang Shi was discussing a plan of action with the prince. But Liu wasn't worried about Prince Jing at all. Oh, imagine being a servant in the prince's house, and one day your master just decides to make a fish his best friend. It'd be pretty trippy, yeah. Make not only the fish his best friend, but fish his entire personality from that point forward. Yeah. In the book, even though the noble consort seemed to have the emperor's favor, she didn't end up living very long. Liu figured this wasn't a big deal since there wasn't a detailed passage about this particular situation in the book. Nothing major was going to happen. Otherwise, how would Prince Jing ascend to the throne? Also, there's a weird guy who just moves in one day. Yeah. Prince Jing was the kind of person who held grudges. An eye for an eye. If the noble consort really dared to try something, she wouldn't be reaping the rewards. She'd be suffering the consequences. No wonder Wang Shi was kind of frosty towards Liu. Well, he's basically been the only consistent person in this prince's life his entire life. She wouldn't be reaping the rewards, she would be suffering the consequences. Anyway, as far as Li Yu was concerned, Prince Jing seeing the emperor was none of his business. He was a fish. All he had to do was wait quietly in his tank for the prince to come back before continuing with his task. The weird guy, your master. Yeah. Well, the 3-day time limit wasn't very long. It wasn't too bad either. He had completed the first 2 tasks entirely by chance, so perhaps it would be the same for this one. To his surprise, though, he watched Wang Shi rummage through the prince's chests and shelves, where he procured a little jade bowl. He approached the fish tank with an ominous look on his face. Liu tensed. "Wait! Stop! What are you doing?" Liu screamed. Wang Shi, sleeves rolled up, quickly snatched up Liu and deposited him in the jade bowl. The jade bowl was much too cramped, and the water it held was very shallow. There was barely space for Liu, who was forced to curl up into a circle to fit inside. Couldn't even swim normally, let alone roll around. If he exerted even just a tiny bit of force, he would surface from the water. It wasn't very safe. Liu curled around himself pitifully. Wang Shi murmured to him, "Little thing, you'll have to bear with this for a while, since His Highness has decided to take you with him. Be good and don't embarrass him." Holy fucking shit. What was Wang Shi saying? Was Prince Jing okay? A man who couldn't speak language bringing a fish that also couldn't speak? Liu didn't want to see any emperors or noble consorts. Knowing that Prince Jing was a noble prince and that he had the rest of the plotline ahead of him, Liu didn't think the emperor would do anything to his son. But Liu, on the other hand, was an entirely different matter. He was just a fish. If the emperor didn't like him, he could easily throw him away or roast him. Lecturing the fish to behave. He's really loyal to his master. Like, so loyal. Wake up! It wasn't up to Liu to decide where he went. With this trip, the fate of his fish life was up in the air. He had to come up with a contingency plan, and fast. There was still one spot in his inventory. Liu took a deep breath. While Wang Shi was distracted, he frantically tapped on his scale, thinking, "Let me save some clean water. I want water." He could survive as long as he had enough water. Unless the emperor decided to cut off his fish head. Although there was water inside the jade bowl he was in right now, it was much too shallow to feel safe. If the person holding the bowl had shaky hands, he was fucked. He wasn't going to leave his life in some stranger's hands. He was going to save himself by saving some water. Liu hadn't put anything in his inventory yet. He definitely didn't expect to come into use so quickly. He'd only heard the system explain its application once, so he was purely relying on luck. Good thing he had a pretty good memory and remembered most of what the system had said. Instantly, the water in the porcelain tank became shallower, while Liu's inventory filled with water. "I have water!" Satisfied, Liu put away his inventory. Wang Shi called a group of servants into the room. They were all busy with their own tasks, so no one noticed the volume of the water changing inside the porcelain fish tank. Since Prince Jing had decided to take the little carp to see the emperor, Wang Shi had to make sure everything was taken care of. He prepared several small jade bowls of around the same size and various changes of clothes, all of which had to be taken along with the prince as a precaution. Wang Shi may not have been able to go with the prince to see the emperor, but the least he could do was take care of Prince Jing on the way there. And it makes you wonder how far the palaces actually are apart. If he's like, nope, we need the change of clothes, we need this and this and this. And I know it's totally a different time period, but it's like we're packing for a day trip. We're going down the road. Prince Jing gestured, indicating that he would hold the little carp, who was about to meet the emperor. Wang Shi handed the bowl over respectfully, and Prince Jing glanced inside. The bowl was quite small, so the fish couldn't even fully stretch out inside. Wang Shi said that there was nothing they can do about that. It wasn't like they could take a large bowl to see the emperor. That would stick out like a sore thumb. The little carp might have been more comfortable, but what would the emperor think? Prince Jing didn't care what the emperor would think. The bowl was too cramped. He shot Wang Shi a judgmental glare. I know he's Prince Jing's personal attendant, but Wang Shi is all of the green flag. He so is. He's such a good dude for our Prince Jing. And just in general, like, he just loves his master and wants what's best for him and for him to be happy. Like, not only what's best for him, but all the happy little joys and anything that makes him happy. Which is awesome to see. Like, he's not plotting, he's not scheming. He's just like, this fish, though it's weird, it makes my prince happy, and that's all I want for him. He's such a good father figure. Or even like good uncle figure. Like, he's just a good dude figure. Prince Jing didn't care what the emperor would think. The bowl was too cramped. He shot Wang Shi a judgmental glare. Wang Shi thought his eyes were playing tricks on him and rubbed his eyes hard. Your Highness, you're going to see the emperor. It's best if you take this jade bowl. Prince Jing sidestepped around him and pointed at a different bowl that had been taken out during Wang Shi's search for the jade bowl. This bowl was huge, with delicate ripples of water painted on the side. It was fully large enough to hold a pot of soup. Wang Shi's jaw dropped. Prince Jing was a stubborn man. Whatever he wanted, he was going to get. The large bowl was quickly brought over. Glancing briefly at Wang Shi, Prince Jing poured the little carp along with the water into the large bowl himself. Then he filled it up with more water. Liu was suddenly freed from the confines of the jade bowl. What happened? Why did it change again? But this new bowl was so much cooler. He liked it. Liu demonstrated his fishiness to the extreme, swimming and jumping around in his new domain. Since Prince Jing had moved him into a larger bowl, he had to amend his impression of the prince. Perhaps tyrants were, on occasion, good at taking care of their pets. Seeing how delighted the fish was, Prince Jing's lips twitched a little. After a second thought, he brought out the box of red fish feed. He carefully shook out a few pieces into the bowl, in case this fish became hungry in its overexcitement as they made their way to the palace. Liu couldn't be more grateful, completely unaware that from afar, between the large bowl and the floating red pellets, he looked like a large bowl of goji fish soup. With one hand supporting the bowl on the bottom, Prince Jing covered the top with the other, in case the fish got too lively and jumped out. Even though he wasn't touching him directly, Liu could still feel the heat from his palm. It was warm and unexpectedly cozy. Liu had originally had doubts about whether this person was reliable, but if the prince protected him like this, it should be safe, right? The little carp's anxious heart gradually calmed until it settled down to the rhythm of Prince Jing's footsteps. How long is this chapter? Oh! She gave me a shout out in her stream? How so? Is this about the box or what I'm reading right now? I mean, that's amazing for her to do. I love that she does those shouts out. That I'm streaming or box? Oh, okay. Is she opening it right now? It's been a whole saga with that box. Like the whole thing with tariffs right now. Okay, thank you. Okay, so maybe one last chapter and then maybe we'll call it, because I have been waiting for over a month to see her open that box. Let me see where this chapter ends. Okay. Oh yeah. This is a longer chapter. All right, we'll just keep going. Okay. Thank you for letting me know, Night Owl. Okay. The fish meets the emperor. Prince Jing brought Liu to Qianqing. Multitasking queen, I got you. That absolutely you do. Thank you, Night Owl. Qianqing Palace. As they made their way over, the system, which had been silent this whole time, suddenly spoke to Liu. The prerequisites have been met for the side quest, Clear Bright Pearl. Would the user like to begin the quest? What was going on? He hadn't gotten along with Prince Jing yet, but now there was another quest, and a side quest too? He couldn't glean anything from just its name, though. Liu didn't want to overcomplicate things by having to worry about a side quest. The main quest at the same time would be overworking his poor fish brain. But out of curiosity, he still asked about the reward. The system replied, the reward for the quest is a temporary transformation medicine, allowing the user to return to human form for a short period of time. The effects will last 2 hours. There will not be any penalty for failing the side quest. A medicine that could turn him back into a human? Why wasn't this brought up before? Even if it only lasted 2 hours, couldn't he just do the quest a couple more times, receive the reward over and over, and use them one after the other? Then he could stay human forever. The reward can only be claimed once, the system mercilessly reminded him as it witnessed his naive stupidity. Fine. I already knew you were a fish scamming system. He absolutely had to do the side quest. He had nothing to lose if he failed. If he had the medicine to transform, he could pick a suitable day to eat a ton of human food, talk a lot, and go anywhere he wanted to. I love that that's his priority. Like, the first thing he thinks of is, like, I can eat some human food, and it will be amazing. Then I can maybe talk to a person. Food first. Liu was originally human, but it wasn't until he became a fish that he appreciated how freeing and delightful it was to be a human. It would only be a short couple of hours, but getting to re-experience being human for even that amount of time was simply too alluring. It's just one more task. I'll do it. This quest, called Clear Bright Pearl, consisted of only a single line. Obtain 1 luminous pearl. Stupid system's quests had always been vague. He has his priorities straight. I mean, let's be real. Whenever you visit a new place, what is one of the first things you look into? What are the food specialties of that area? Because, yeah, we as the human race love food. Like, I mean, we need it, but also, like, variety is the spice of life, and right now he's got fish food. He's got 2 varieties. I agree, most Momars are over. The stupid system quest had always been vague in its instructions, but Liu was already used to it. He has no idea what a luminous pearl could possibly have to do with him, a fish. The system had previously explained that side quest could only be achieved after the corresponding prerequisites had been fulfilled. Seeing how this side quest had become available while Prince Jing was taking him to Qianqing Palace, it must have had something to do with seeing the Emperor. So it didn't seem like he'd need to make any detours. Despite being royalty, Prince Jing didn't like to ride in a palanquin. Holding the little carp, with Wang Shen trailing behind, he made his way to Qianqing Palace at a leisurely stroll. The head eunuch, Luo Ruishang, had already been waiting in front of the doors to Qianqing Palace for some time, and as soon as he saw Prince Jing, he rushed forward to greet him, bowed, and escorted him inside. Wang Shi couldn't go in, so all he could do was wait anxiously outside the palace. They had finally arrived. Liu swam to the water's surface, taking in the view of Qianqing Palace. As expected of the emperor's quarters, it was magnificent and an extravagant structure filled with all sorts of rare and precious furnishings. The scent of sandalwood wafted by. Liu was utterly mesmerized. As magnificent as the room was, though, there was no fish tank in sight. Liu much preferred the quarters with the porcelain fish tank. It was only because of this excursion that he discovered Prince Jing was keeping him in Jingtai Hall. Even after the title of prince was bestowed on him and he left the palace, Jingtai Hall, where Prince Jing had grown up, was still reserved for him. It truly was Prince Jing's territory. Liu was quietly proud of himself for managing to get into the tyrant's lair without much effort. He's so goofy, I love him. He scanned his surroundings, but to his dismay, he didn't spot any luminous pearls. Liu had hoped the system would give him some hints, especially since the side quest had come out of nowhere, but there hadn't been another peep from that stupid system since it announced the side quest. Liu had to set both the main and side quests aside for the time being. Without any leads, all he could do was leave it up to fate. Seeing the Emperor was more important right now. In the book, the Emperor had quite a backstory with Prince Jing. In the original story, Prince Jing's mother, Empress Xiao Huai, had already been in ill health before she gave birth to the prince. After he was born, she couldn't bear the fact that her son was mute, and she passed away shortly after. The Emperor's deeply loved and respected Empress Xiao Huai, so his feelings for his son had always been complicated. He never grew very close to him. This was especially clear after Prince Jing turned 16, when the Emperor ordered him to move out of the palace and into his own manor. All the other princes had only received their respective manors after they were married, but it didn't seem to matter to the Emperor that Prince Jing remained unmarried to this day. As such, many people believe Prince Jing was unwanted and unloved. Liu was not one of those many people. The reason the Emperor was so distant from Prince Jing wasn't because he didn't care for him, but because he sought to protect him. As Empress Xiao Huai's son, Prince Jing had a much higher status than most. But no matter how noble he was, his muteness prevented him from inheriting the throne. Although the Emperor had no desire to foster a close relationship with Prince Jing due to his wife's death, this was still his cherished wife's flesh and blood. Ordering him to move into his own manor early was the Emperor's way of protecting his son. Ultimately, the Emperor hoped this son would be able to live a peaceful life. All else aside, Prince Jing wasn't really the tolerant type. When he was a child and the other young princes taunted him for being mute, Prince Jing would just roll up his sleeves and beat them up. After the Emperor found out, everyone was punished, but he also privately warned the other princes to be kinder to Prince Jing. With Prince Jing's inability to speak, his education was a challenge too, but the emperor specially appointed a strict teacher who had experience teaching mute and deaf students. The emperor never voiced his love for Prince Jing, but his actions spoke for him. Liu, therefore, was not at all worried about this trip. I do appreciate that the emperor actually loves his son, or appears to. In the main hall of Qianqing Palace, the emperor sat on a throne carved with intricate flying dragons, draped in bright yellow imperial robes. He nodded slightly when Prince Jing entered. Tianqi, you've arrived. Prince Jing set the large bowl that held the little carp on a small side table off to the side and bowed seriously. The emperor beckoned him to stand back up, smiling. As he looked at his son from a distance, pause. Here he is, Mr. Emperor. So you got Liu over here in his fishbowl, and the emperor being all dramatic with his dragon throne. Then here's our boy. I like that he's actually smiling. As we were saying earlier, I really do enjoy these illustrations. I know some people were saying they wish they were kind of closer to this style, but I'm like, I enjoy this. This is so cute. I know, on Reddit, I've seen some comments about it's a vastly different style from this to this, which, yeah, but that's okay. Prince Jing set the large bowl that held the little carp on a small table off to the side and bowed seriously. The emperor beckoned him to stand back up, smiling. As he looked at his son from a distance, he noticed that Prince Jing was just as cold and quiet as always. Naturally, the emperor's gaze fell on the large bowl Prince Jing had brought. In the emperor's experience, bowls generally held soup. If someone came into Qianqing Palace with a bowl, they were usually there to present the soup to him. Assuming that Prince Jing knew what he had done wrong and had brought an offering of soup to apologize, the emperor chuckled. How considerate of you. The misunderstood Prince Jing wasn't quite sure how to respond. Of his sons, the emperor rarely tried to get close to this one. He felt his heart warming at the sight of the prince trying to please him. He immediately ordered Luo Ruisheng to bring forward the prince's soup. Prince Jing couldn't speak. There was nothing he could do to stop Luo Gonggong in time, and the head eunuch nimbly picked up the large bowl before he could make his objection clear. Another eunuch waiting on the side handed over a silver needle. At first glance, the soup looked like goji fish soup. Needle in hand, Luo Gonggong was about to test it for poison like usual when he made eye contact with the lively little carp that had poked its head out of the water to watch all the commotion. Luo Gonggong was so alarmed that he nearly dropped the bowl. You, Prince Jing, what did you bring? Equally startled by Luo Gonggong's sudden appearance, Liu immediately sank to the bottom of the bowl. It's alive? Luo Gonggong realized with a start, this wasn't fish soup. What exactly did Prince Jing bring? The emperor was too far away to see, but Luo Gonggong's exclamation made him curious. While Luo Gonggong struggled to think of how to answer, Prince Jing got up, approached Luo Gonggong, and took the bowl back, all without saying a single word. The emperor looked on in befuddlement. Prince Jing proceeded to bring the large bowl before the emperor himself, but he didn't look like he had any intention of handing it over. His hands remained clasped around the bowl. Okay, I know this is probably partially because he's one of my absolute favorites, but this is definitely giving some Lan Wangji vibes. This is my fish, this is my bunny, this is my Wei Ying. And I love that. The large bowl, with its water-rippled patterns, held a large volume of water. Swimming inside it was a small, palm-sized carp. The emperor paused. Prince Jing, What is the meaning of this? Mu Tianxi smiled as he reached a finger into the water, swirling it gently. Liu had managed to steal a glance at the emperor from within the water and saw a middle-aged man with a square face and a short mustache. It was fortunate that Prince Jing's other features were more like Empress Xiao Huai's, Liu thought, and that he only shared his eyes with his father. If he looked more like the emperor, it would have been a blow to his good looks. A little harsh there, man, but Perhaps because he'd sensed Liu's criticism, the prince suddenly dipped his finger into the water. Liu was at a loss of what to do. He realized after a few seconds that the prince was playing with him, but they were standing before the emperor right now. What was the prince trying to do? Ever since Prince Jing had switched out his bowl, Liu knew the prince wasn't planning on giving him to the emperor. When it came to presenting gifts to the emperor, looks were paramount. Of course, a small dainty jade bowl would be more suited to the ruler's taste, but since the prince had passed on the jade bowl, it was clear he had no plan on using him to try to please the emperor. In that case, why did the prince bring him to see the emperor? Why play with him in front of the emperor? Oh, well, who cared? If the master wanted to play with his pet, it was the pet's duty to respond. Liu shoved down his embarrassment. This wasn't the first or second time he had to act cute for Prince Jing. He swam, stopped in between the prince's fingers. After hesitating for a moment, Liu nuzzled his fish mouth against Prince Jing's finger affectionately. Whoa, there was the smell of fish food, the mouth-watering red kind. His movements were initially a little stiff, but as time went on, he began willingly chasing after the other man's finger. As Prince Jing looked down at the little carp swimming happily in the bowl, a light shone faintly in his eyes. The emperor almost thought he was seeing things. Prince Jing had always been cold and harsh, keeping his emotions under tight lock and key. Yet here he was, playing with a fish in a way that could only be described as gentle. In the past, concerned that Prince Jing was too unsociable, the emperor had tried sending many cats and dogs to his son in the hopes of providing him with a companion. But the prince never even spared them a single glance, never mind accepting one of them. At the time, the emperor thought the prince perhaps simply disliked pets. But now, for some reason, the Prince Jing, who didn't like pets, was making an exception for a fish, of all things? Dazed, the emperor considered the different possibilities. After a while, and with great difficulty, he opened his mouth. Do you mean to say that you've started taking care of this fish? Mu Tianxi nodded slightly. Prince Jing had actually decided to raise a pet fish. The emperor was flabbergasted. It wasn't a bad thing, since this son of his seemed to be finally demonstrating some human feelings, but this fish, it wasn't even a precious, auspicious koi. It was just a little run-of-the-mill carp. It looked like the kind that was usually made into soup. Prince Jing's tastes sure were something. At this point, the emperor had already forgotten why he had summoned the prince. A pet fish, he said with a twitch of his lips, sounding a little forced. Not bad. Liu watched Prince Jing and felt like a little pony had trotted proudly across his heart. Although Wang Gonggong and even Liu himself had long since accepted that he was Prince Jing's pet, this was the first time the prince had acknowledged it himself. Did the prince bring him here for the sole purpose of announcing Liu as his pet in front of the emperor? What a high-profile and distinguished pet he was. Liu was floating on Cloud 9. The point of the main quest, priceless pet fish, was now for him to become Prince Jing's pet fish, after all. And now the prince had straight up announced that he was his pet in front of the emperor. Didn't that mean the main quest was complete? But there was no prompt congratulating him on completing a task. Apparently, a concession from Prince Jing wasn't enough for this stupid system. He still had to press on until he succeeded at getting along with the prince. A eunuch rushed in, announcing that the noble consort and the second prince were outside, requesting an audience. This was when the emperor remembered why he had summoned Prince Jing. He gave the prince a meaningful look, but he was so busy playing with his fish that he didn't react. The emperor sighed lightly. Let them in. Okay, so I think I'm actually going to stop here because I usually try to go for 2.5 hours, and that's actually a really good point to stop/start next time because this is a whole other section. So I think we're going to stop here tonight. But that was a lot of fun. I absolutely love this series. So I know I am definitely going to enjoy this. I hope you all, both watching right now and who will watch this later, also enjoyed the beginning of The Disabled Tyrant and His Beloved Pet Fish. And I hope you enjoyed me reading it with you. I know I definitely did. I loved all the comments. It's so much fun for me. Just talking back and forth and doing my side comments about the book as well. So I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful weekend. Or not weekend. I'm going to be reading again on Thursday. I don't know what I'm saying. For those of you new to me, you're absolutely welcome, Peacock Pages. I stream generally Tuesday, Thursdays, 8 CST. So just like today, Central Standard Time, 8 o'clock. I will let you know both about any updates, kind of a little summary of what happened tonight on both my YouTube posts page, as well as I have a Blue Sky under Rosebud Reads. I post little updates if anything's different about the coming days. I will post both on the YouTube and Blue Sky about any changes, and I'll post right here, usually in the middle or beginning or end of the videos, if there's going to be any changes with the schedule. I try to stay pretty consistent with the Tuesday, Thursday thing, but life happens. Sometimes it's unavoidable. But yeah, this coming Thursday, if nothing is unavoidable, so I will see you then. I generally try to keep it 2.5, sometimes 3 hours, depending. I think we'll keep it to this length, so I'll go and re-separate out the books, and I will see you next time. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your evening and a great day tomorrow. Good night.